This documentary delves deeply into the emotional journey of love after loss, exploring how it transforms over time and ultimately offers peace to those who have suffered a loved one's passing. In every life, love is one of the most powerful forces we experience. We give it, receive it, cherish it, and often find that it shapes us. But what happens to love when the person you love is no longer physically present? Does it fade with time? Can you truly fall out of love with someone who has passed away? This documentary explores this profound question, shedding light on the emotional journey people go through after the death of a loved one. The shock of loss. When a person loses someone they love, it feels like their world has shattered. The foundation upon which their life was built crumbles, leaving behind a sense of emptiness. The initial shock of loss is often accompanied by disbelief. Grief becomes all-consuming, making it difficult to function the same way they once did. In the early stages of mourning, love and sorrow exist in an inseparable bond. The emotional connection with the deceased becomes raw in the presence of grief. Every memory suddenly feels more painfully meaningful. Love, once so freely given and received, now carries the weight of absence. It is no longer a feeling, but a reminder of what has been lost. The grief is profound, filling the space where presence once was and turning familiar comforts into emotional triggers. This love, now mixed with the reality of death, becomes bittersweet. Joy is shadowed by longing, and the mourner often finds themselves caught between the past and present. The future now appears unclear, difficult to imagine without the presence of the loved one. It can feel disorienting, leaving the mourner unsure of how to move forward. As time passes, though the pain may reduce, sacred spaces remains. It becomes a guiding force, the way the mourner engages the world. The mourner's journey is shaped by this bond, and healing does not mean letting go of the one who is gone, but learning how to move forward. Emotional impact of absence. When a loved one's possessions are gone, it can feel as if they were never truly there, as though their absence has erased their presence from the space and from memory itself. If a person who has lost a loved one feels that the loved one was never truly there because their possessions are no longer occupying the space. When someone loses a loved one, the absence they feel often extends far beyond the person's physical departure. If the grieving person comes to feel that their loved one was never truly there simply because their belongings are no longer present in the space, it can signal a profound emotional disconnection. The environment that once offered comfort and familiarity becomes strangely foreign, stripped of the items that once carried the subtle warmth of everyday presence. The mundane, an old coat slung over a chair, a favorite book on the nightstand, the scent of a worn sweater, a bedroom they once slept in, these things become sacred relics of memory. They serve not only as reminders of who the person was, but also how they lived, what they loved, and how they moved through the world. When those items are suddenly gone, whether packed away, donated, or discarded, the absence can feel even more acute. It's not just a loss of physical objects, but a symbolic deletion of the person's identity from the shared world. Their essence, which once lingered in the corners of a room, in the quiet hum of routine, seems to dissipate along with the things they touched and treasured. The room may now feel unnaturally silent, the air somehow thinner, the walls emptier, as though the space itself denies the memory of the one who lived there. This can provoke a surreal sense of disbelief, where the mourner finds themselves questioning the reality of what was. Was the person ever truly there if nothing of them remains? This kind of disorientation deepens the emotional impact of grief, compounding the sorrow with a haunting sense of erasure. It becomes not just a mourning of a person, but a mourning of their imprint on the physical world, their subtle and intimate influence on space and time. The transition from a space once alive with presence to one that now echoes with emptiness compels the mourner to confront the finality of loss in a painfully immediate way. Yet, even in the starkness of that empty room, something lingers. The emotional presence of the loved one does not vanish with their possessions. It persists in memory, in habit, in longing, in all the intangible ways that are more difficult to categorize or contain. And perhaps most heartbreakingly, those emotional traces are often the hardest to reconcile because they lack form. They cannot be touched, moved, or set aside. They exist in the quiet moments, in the sudden waves of sadness, in the ache that has no obvious source. And so, even in absence, the presence remains, just changed, elusive, and woven into the mourner's inner world. When possessions become proof of love, letting go of a deceased loved one's possessions can bring feelings of guilt, as if discarding their things means we didn't truly love them. We may even imagine we're hurting them by doing so, despite knowing they're no longer here, an emotional conflict that only deepens our grief. Letting go of a deceased loved one's possessions can stir a complicated and often unexpected form of guilt. These items, clothing, books, trinkets, furniture, become more than just objects in the aftermath of loss. They transform into symbols, tangible links to the person who is no longer here. Parting with them can feel like a betrayal, as if by removing these items from our lives, we are somehow erasing the person themselves. We may worry that giving away or throwing out their belongings suggests that we've moved on too quickly, or worse, that we didn't truly value them. The mind, in grief, often plays tricks, blurring the line between emotional and physical loss. Some people even find themselves imagining that their loved one would be hurt or disappointed by the act of letting go, as though the deceased could still feel abandoned or unloved. Rationally, we may know they are gone, beyond pain or judgment, but emotionally, the connection is still alive and vivid. That imagined disapproval can sit heavy in the heart, intensifying the pain. We might hesitate, unsure if we're preserving memory or clinging to it, unsure if letting go is an act of love or an act of forgetting. This emotional conflict between the need to hold on and the need to move forward creates a unique kind of grief. It's layered with guilt, doubt, and fear, making what might seem like a simple act of organizing or cleaning into a deeply personal and painful experience. And yet, it's also a testament to love, that even the smallest of their possessions can feel sacred, worthy of mourning, and impossibly hard to part with. Some people carry guilt for not grieving the right way, questioning whether their emotions, or lack thereof, are valid. Losing a loved one is emotionally overwhelming, and some people experience guilt over how they are grieving. They may feel their mourning isn't right, or that they haven't loved the deceased enough if their grief isn't as visible or intense as others. This self-doubt can lead to feelings of inadequacy, causing the mourner to question their emotions and whether their love is deep enough. Grief is personal, and there's no standard way to mourn. Some may experience intense sorrow, while others may feel numb or calm. These differing reactions often lead to worry about not grieving properly, but grief doesn't follow a set timeline, and comparing grief can be harmful. Absence of outward grief doesn't mean a lack of love. Love can be carried quietly in memories and subtle acts of honoring the deceased. Time doesn't lessen love. It evolves as people find ways to carry it while moving forward. Guilt over how one grieves only adds to the emotional burden, and healing takes place in its own time and form, regardless of societal expectations. Grief is love's reminder. The first years are often the hardest, as we struggle to understand how to live without the person who shaped so much of our world. In the early years after losing a loved one, many people feel their emotional connection remains strong, as if the deceased is still present through memories, dreams, or reflections. Though the physical body is gone, this bond can feel timeless, making it difficult to fully accept the finality of death. Instead of fading, love often deepens, evolving into something more reflective and spiritual. The mourner shifts from longing for the return of the deceased to cherishing their memory, honoring their presence in the heart. This transition requires emotional work as the relationship changes from physical to spiritual. Over time, love endures in a new form, shaped by memories and lessons, proving that love is not bound by time or death, but continues to provide strength and guidance. Time and healing. Over time, the intensity of grief softens, replaced by a quieter, more subtle sadness that lingers without overwhelming. This sorrow surfaces in moments of reflection, reminding the mourner of what was lost. Alongside this, a sense of peace begins to grow not by forgetting, but by learning to live with the absence. The mourner finds new routines, relationships, and moments of joy, carrying their love in a new way. While deep longing may still occur, especially on significant dates, it is accompanied by acceptance that the loved one is gone, yet their love endures in a form that transcends physical presence. This shift creates a new balance, where love and loss coexist as a gentle reminder of a life shared. But even as the pain softens, the question remains, does the love you feel for the deceased begin to fade with time? Is it possible to stop loving someone after they're gone? Or does love shift to something more intangible, eternal, as it takes on a different form? There's no single answer, as every person's journey is unique. Psychologists suggest that love, even after death, does not necessarily disappear. Instead, it often morphs into a more reflective and peaceful emotion. When individuals reach a place of peace and acceptance, no longer longing for the past or haunted by absence, they can still feel a deep affection for the person, but without the desperation or pain that once accompanied it. Over time, people come to accept their loss, moving from viewing it as an open wound to seeing absence as a space where love can continue in a different form. The intense yearning fades, replaced by understanding that love doesn't require physical presence to remain meaningful. This shift allows them to honor their loved one's memory in a way that brings comfort, not pain. Memories become a source of strength, helping them find joy and gratitude in the lessons learned and the bonds shared. While the pain of loss may still linger, it no longer defines their life. The role of memory. Memories hold incredible power, especially when they are linked to love. The act of remembering can keep the deceased alive in the hearts of those left behind, but the nature of those memories changes. Love never truly dies. It simply transforms into something more subtle, yet no less powerful. As time passes, the memories of the person may become more distant, gradually fading into the background of daily life, but they remain profoundly significant. While the sharp ache of longing for their physical presence may soften, the love that once existed continues to endure in a different form. This love is no longer tied to the immediate, tangible moments of life. Instead, it is held in the sacred recollections of shared experiences or in the wisdom passed down through the years. For many, the memory of their loved one evolves into a source of guidance. It becomes a quiet presence, offering reassurance and strength when needed. The person may find themselves feeling, if their loved one were still here, they would want them to keep moving forward, finding joy and purpose in their own life. This can serve as helping the person live again, knowing the love they shared is not confined to the past, but something to guide them through the present and future. As years of grief fade, they come to understand, love does not need to be anchored in physical presence to remain meaningful. It exists in a more spiritual way, in their memories, actions, choices, and relationships that define who they are today. It becomes an invisible thread that connects them to their loved one, beyond time and distance. In this realization, there is healing, peace, and knowing love has the power to transcend the physical world, continuing to live on. Can someone truly fall out of love with someone who has passed away? Does the love once felt for the deceased slowly fade with time? Is love vulnerable to non-existent because of faded memories and time passing? It depends on how we define falling out of love. This question doesn't have a single clear answer. Love after loss is a deeply personal experience, and each journey through grief is shaped by the nature of the relationship, the depth of connection, and the mourner's own emotional landscape. For some, the love may feel as vivid as ever, pulsing just beneath the surface of daily life. For others, it may become quieter, more distant, less a flame, and more a soft glow. Psychologists suggest that love doesn't necessarily vanish when someone dies. Rather, it undergoes a transformation. In the immediate aftermath of loss, love can feel inseparable from pain, a desperate, aching presence that both soothes and torments. But as time passes and acceptance begins to take root, that same love often settles into something more reflective, more peaceful. It becomes less about longing and more about honoring. Less about absence and more about presence in memory. When individuals reach a point where they are no longer consumed by yearning or immobilized by grief, they may begin to experience a gentler version of love. This love isn't tied to the need for physical closeness, nor is it defined by what is missing. Instead, it becomes a companion, something that lives within them rather than outside of them. They can think of the person and smile, feel a wave of warmth rather than sorrow, and find meaning in the enduring bond they still carry. This evolution marks a profound shift, the transition from seeing grief as an open wound to understanding that the absence itself can be a sacred space, one in which love continues, transformed, but still alive. The urgency of loss fades, making room for gratitude, for the richness of memory, and for a sense of peace that comes from knowing the love they shared was real and lasting. Memories, once piercing, become sources of strength. They are no longer evidence of what has been lost, but testaments to what was deeply known and profoundly felt. In time, the mourner may find themselves drawing comfort from these memories, finding joy not in the presence of the person, but in the permanence of the impact they left behind. While the ache of loss may never disappear entirely, it no longer defines the shape of their days. Instead, love continues, quieter, deeper, enduring in a new form that needs no physical presence to feel real. Some people might find that the intensity of their love for the deceased diminishes over time, not because the love is gone, but because they have accepted and made peace with it. Love after death is not letting go of the person, it's letting go of the pain and grief and accepting that life continues. For others, the love they feel may not decrease, but becomes more spiritual. Love, in this context, doesn't diminish, but grows into something that can coexist with living without their loved one. Conclusion. So, does a person fall out of love with their loved ones after they've passed, and after many years of coming to terms with their absence? Perhaps the better question is, can love ever truly leave us, even in death? Love doesn't die, it simply evolves, growing from a place of longing to acceptance, peace, and eternal remembrance. As we move through life, we learn that love is not bound by time, nor confined to the physical world. Love transcends all, lingering in our hearts as we continue our journey, forever changed, but never truly alone. Love endures beyond death, and in our hearts, the ones we love never truly leave us. The peace we feel in our heart is not from us falling out of love. Just because we can't remember their faces as we would like to, it is not us not missing them or forgetting about them. It's the light of life, with each passing day getting brighter and stronger, that we may one day wake up and breathe again. As the saying goes, time heals all wounds.